Just for the viewers, I'm going to stop you there. So when you say plates, can you be more specific? Is it 20 kilo Olympic plates we're talking about here?
Yeah.
So what's 4 plates aside is what, 80 and 80?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So yeah, I keep up with the boys when I train with them. So, and I like to push them as well. So, and I think when they see that I'm catching up with them, they're like, whoa, we can't have a girl beat us. So we sort of push each other.
That's amazing. That's a big weight though.
Big, yeah.
Because the bar's what, 25 is it, or 20?
20.
So you got some heavy weight, 180 on the shoulder press.
Yeah.
That's mad.
It's.
I did 5 plates once, but it was 5 plates of rice. I just ate them. We're at the Windmill Boxing Team HQ. I'm the head coach. It's the Punchline podcast. I'm pleased to interview a new guest, somebody quite unique, a bit of a hero with the NHS as a nurse, and also an upcoming budding bodybuilder. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Clarissa.
Hello.
And I want you to start off by telling us what you do and how it all came about.
So I do bodybuilding. How on earth it came about, I've absolutely no idea. It had always been a dream of mine to do bodybuilding, but I always thought I'd never be good enough. When I was younger, I was doing athletics. I was a bit of a tomboy, and I moved across to Birmingham. And I got into circuit training originally, and then I started doing my boxing. I was fighting for about 3-4 years and really focusing on my fitness before I went into sort of marathons, triathlons, and did a lot of climbing as well. And then I just thought, do you know what? Life's too short. I started a new job. And it just made me think, do you know what? You've got to seize life. You can't think, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it the next day. Why not start it today? If it's a dream, you don't want to sort of end your life thinking, I wish I had. So I thought, do you know what? I need to do this. And I'd seen one of my friends, she'd started sort of getting ready for a fitness competition herself. So I got in contact with her. I got in touch with her coach. And it sort of started from there. So that was 2.5 years ago. I think I've competed 4 or 5 times, but I've literally moved from one of the smallest categories up into the big girl category in that time. So it's been really good. So
when you talk about categories, obviously I don't know a lot about bodybuilding. I know what it's about, that you got to sculpture your body to look the best on the day. But what is the categories? How are they made up, and who decides which category you go in?
So all the categories are made by the federations. So you start with the smallest, so your bikini girls. And then you'll move up to sort of your figure classes. So a little bit more muscle. They start coming in a bit harder. You'll then move up to like your figure trained, again, getting a bit bigger. Then you'll move up to your women's physique. And again, getting bigger, and then your last category is your female bodybuilding. Just
out of interest, how many people are competition day? Let's say the competition you just mentioned, how many people do you compete against?
It just depends on the day who's there. With the smaller girls in the bikini classes, there tends to be a lot more, just because that tends to be more of a desired look. Not every girl wants muscle, and that's absolutely fine. But as you move up in the categories, the numbers of competitors tends to be lower, but the competition is a lot harder once you get up there.
And, you know, we talked about the federation. What is the name of the federation, and how do they put competitions together? How do you enter? How are you eligible for entry, or how do you get judged on the day?
So the first federation I competed with was PCA, which is based in Birmingham. I competed with them, and then I moved across to UKBFF, which is another sort of bodybuilding federation. And then I've just started competing with Two Bros. So by competing with Two Bros, that's the opportunity to get your IFBB professional card. which will then mean that I can compete out in America, which is a dream for this year.
Okay, and obviously for all this to happen, you're part of a gym. So what gym, or is it a number of gyms that you train at, and what's your weekly or daily routine?
There's a number of gyms that I train at. So I'm based at Emporium Gym and also at Temple Gym. But I train.
Temple Gym's quite a famous one, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
In Birmingham.
In Birmingham, yeah. Very big gym. So it's good. At the minute, I'm on prep. So I tend to get up at 4 o'clock every morning. I'll go out for my hour's walk, come back, do abs, and then I'll go and train. Then I normally go to work from there, and then I'll come back and do another hour's cardio before bed. But it's not just the training for bodybuilding, it's the diet, which is absolute hell. But it's good as well because that's what I enjoy. It's sort of the torment and just seeing how strong-willed I actually can be. I do tend to sort of tease myself, so I'll go to the supermarket and just walk down the cake aisle. But not allowed, but I just like to look and go, no.
Okay. And you talked about meals. Typically, what would you have in a day?
So breakfast tends to be egg whites and oats. And then we'll move on to sort of rice, broccoli, plantain, chicken. I have that sort of 3-4 times. So I tend to eat sort of 5 times per day and weigh all my food out. And I've got proper OCD, so everything's got to be exact to the gram. So yeah, and then you're drinking probably about 6 to 8 litres a day.
That's water, yeah? And do you have any protein shakes or anything like that?
I have one protein shake just post-workout. But my little tip for myself is I make it into a mousse and then it's like a pudding rather than a drink.
And you talked about this prep phase. So I'm assuming there's a number of phases before competition, during competition, after competition. Just break it up for us and tell us what that's about.
So for prep, this is the point that I'll start getting myself ready for a competition. So each week I'm aiming to lose 2 to 3 pounds. And then if I haven't lost that weight, then we start manipulating the diet. As we get closer and closer to the competition, I'll be coming in sort of harder, more vascular. And then sort of the final 2 weeks is when we completely sort of decarb. And then we'll put the carbs back in just before the show, and it'll just make all your muscles sort of pop and you're completely dehydrated. And then post-show, you have to look at like a rebound sort of diet plan. Just because which is what I've done a competition and I ate and ate and ate and ate afterwards. I just wanted sugar. And sort of, I just ballooned, absolutely ballooned. So it's sort of understanding, learning from your mistakes. And so now after a competition, I have one big treat meal, but then I'm back on my diet and just slowly add the carbs back in. So yeah, it's learning about yourself, learning about my body.
You know, the prep phase, I'm assuming before you start chiseling away on the weight and reducing the amount of calories you're taking, and do you actually bulk up before that?
Yeah, so after a show, me and my coach will put a plan together about where we're going to go to. So for myself in, we say, off-season or bulking, this year I went up to 16.5 stone. And now I'm sitting at about 14 stone. It's been able to accept being bigger, which can be quite tough for a female. And then being able to strip it back. But all the way through, when you're bulking, you don't feel good. When you're on prep, you feel small. It's, yeah, whichever one you're doing, you want to do the other one.
So you mentioned your coach a few times. I'm assuming you've got like a team around you, like training partners and a coach. So this is the time where you can give them a shout out and also tell us what their role is and how they support you and how they make you, grind to get to your targets and things like
that. So my coach is Ernie Taylor. So he's IFBB Pro. But yeah, he's one of my sort of very good friends. So he's always at the end of the phone. And a massive, massive support. So couldn't do it without him. So big shout out to Ernie.
Okay.
My training partners wise, so Barrington Patterson, Zulu Baz is my training partner. And
I think I watched him referee a recent white collar show where I think Ginge from Shard End.
That's the one.
That's Baz, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So shout out to Baz as well.
Big shout out to him. So yeah, he pushes me, I push him. We both got the crazy gym mentality where we're just in the same zone. So yeah, we work well together.
I want to move on to a bit of your career. Obviously, you're a nurse. So tell us what you do, and obviously with this pandemic, what the challenges have been recently and how you've managed to keep your training going and do the job at hand.
Oh, it's been interesting. So yeah, so I'm a specialist nurse in organ donation as my job. So I travel all over the UK, unfortunately supporting families who have lost a loved one. So it's very, very long hours, sort of 24-hour shifts that we do. So it keeps me very busy. During the pandemic, we unfortunately had to start shutting the organ donation service down. And then I went back onto the intensive care unit to help during the pandemic. And, you know, a massive shout out to all the girls, boys on ITU, which is where I was working. You know, for the normal standards we would work in, it would be a 1-to-1 nursing. Some shifts I was looking after 4 ventilated patients, and, you know, everyone just worked together. And the challenges it brought to my training, there's always challenges, whether the pandemic's happened or something else has happened. But, you know, if you want something enough, there's no challenges, you get the work done. And I think that's my sort of mentality. If you want it enough, you make it happen. And it's sort of everything around bodybuilding. And unfortunately with bodybuilding, it's the one sport you have to be selfish, and it has to take control of your life, and you can't go out and socialise and party.
Very disciplined, regimented, yeah. We're going to go back to the nursing job. So obviously you've been at the front line in this pandemic.
Yeah.
So just tell us a typical day to like explain to people how real and how difficult this particular virus is. Because someone like me, obviously we know there's a problem, but we don't fully understand it. We just know there's a problem. But you're at the forefront, and obviously you've got medical knowledge. You understand it's your job and your expertise. So just explain how people are affected and how you would step in and basically save people's lives.
I think when COVID first hit, as everyone, I was quite blasé about it. It's just, you know, it's just another virus, and everyone's sort of going over the top. It came quite apparent pretty soon, once I saw the intensive care units, how bad it actually was. And, you know, we have an establishment that, you know, we was probably nursing 4 times the normal amount of patients on the unit. And these patients were sick. You know, we couldn't get family in to see their loved ones. There was a lot of pressure on all staff. A lot of the nurses felt overwhelming pressure because loved ones couldn't be with their family in their last moments. So, yeah, it was very difficult, but, you know, everyone's just pulled together. I always say to people, imagine like Corona, like glitter. You know, you don't have to be touching people to spread it. Just being in the room, you can easily spread it. So, you know, I think Corona's going to be with us forever, and we just all need to adapt the way that we sort of
until we
live
get a vaccine or some kind of resolve. I'd just like to say thank you to all medical staff as well, and anybody else who's been a key worker. You know, anybody from like Sainsbury's, Asda, Tesco staff, anybody's been out there to help everybody else keep the stuff going. It's been a big task, and they've done really well, I think, and they deserve recognition. So we go back to the bodybuilding. On the bodybuilding side, the first competition you did, talk us through your day. You wake up, you know it's competition day. How do you feel? How do you deal?
Oh God, my first competition, that was Body Power. at Birmingham NEC.
Yeah, that's that big exhibition.
Yeah. So everyone was like, "You're crazy picking body power as your first comp." I was like, just get on stage and let's just do it. But I think with bodybuilding, you never see yourself for how good you actually look. You always want more. So running up to the show, it's always the doubts. Am I good enough? Oh, I'm going to pull out, blah, 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 which is why you always need sort of a second eye. The night before, you tend to have a big meal. So I think I had like burger, chips, and you have a glass of dry white wine to completely dry you out. Next morning you wake up, you've dehydrated, you can't have water, it's horrible.
No energy.
You're trickling carbs in you just to try and sort of get the timings right.
How does it affect your mood? Do you get all moody or? I
sort of turn into the Walking Dead. Everyone says I'm a bit ditzy at the best of times, but I just end up being just very, very ditzy. And just a bit slow, to be honest. It's there's sort of always a delayed reaction to my responses, but it's part of it. But on show day, that's when the excitement, you've worked 16 weeks hard dieting for 2-3 minutes on stage. So do you know what? Let's get on there and make it happen.
So the actual day, do you travel alone? Do you get somebody to take you there? And when you're at the venue, what actually happens is you sign in and then you're behind the scenes. What goes on? Do you get stared down by other competitors?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky. I've got my best mate, Pia. Big shout out to Pia. She'll come with me and she keeps me very, very steady.
Is she a bodybuilder as well?
No, she does like all the strong woman stuff. But she keeps me calm, does my makeup, and is a massive, massive support. I couldn't do it without her.
Basically, on the day, once you signed up and you walk into the venue, you're behind the scenes, there's other competitors there. So what goes on? What is the antics behind the scene? Like, do you get stared down? Do you have a shoulder rub against another competitor? What goes on? What's the rivalry like behind the scenes in bodybuilding?
Quite competitive. I mean, I'm very competitive myself. So anyone I see in my category, I'm staring them out straight away. I'm like, what's going on? What's happening? Trying to get a peek. When I get there myself, I always keep myself very covered up until sort of the last 5 minutes. And I always remember the last show I did, I kept myself covered up. I was sweating because you have to pump up. And I was like, right, it's time to take it off. And then my other competitors looked at me and just went, oh. And I was like, yes.
The last minute shock for them.
Yeah. So, it is competitive, but do you know what? It's all of us are doing the same thing that we love. After the show, in between shows, I always talk to all the girls and we all support each other.
So it's a friendly rivalry.
Yeah, it's very friendly. But on the day, it's who looks the best, and it's up to the judges, and that's very subjective.
So what tips have you had from your coach or from your training partners or other competitors to get the extra edge? And one of the things I've noticed watching bodybuilding on TV is they use a spray tan. So what's the idea behind the spray tan?
So every competitor has to have a spray tan, and it just makes the muscles more defined. So you tend to have sort of 2 to 3 sprays on, and then just before you go onto stage, you glaze up, which will just make you really shiny on stage and just show every muscle to its best.
And the actual routine that you do on the stage, is it pre-rehearsed? And what's the impact on the judges with that routine? And how difficult is it? Because a lot of people see bodybuilders smiling throughout that routine, but apparently it's really hard wearing and it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And you're already low on energy, which...
It's very, very difficult up there. So for the women's physique category, you have compulsory poses, which tends to be like your front double bicep, your side chest, side tricep, and back double bicep. And then you'll have your quarter turn. So you're literally doing a quarter turn around, and that's when the judges will do the comparisons with the other competitors.
Okay.
And that's what you're marked and judged on. I always... For me, because being so muscular, I always try and make it as feminine as possible. So to me, making my posing feminine and sassy, I always like to think it gives me a bit of an edge. But when you're posing, it's agony, and you're trying to smile and it's hurting everywhere. You're cramping up. But, you know, you practice that much, you just sort of get used to it. And then with the women's physique, you also get to do a 1 minute dance routine or a posing routine, which it's not judged on. But, you know, I always think if it's between two competitors, that dance routine's going to
Gives
make
an
a bit of
impression,
difference.
yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously you talked about 16-week prep time. So in them 16 weeks, you're driving, you're working hard, you've got a no give up attitude, and then you're eating well, you're dieting, you're disciplined. So do you get any other support? Like, do you have a milk, what do you call it, a protein shake sponsor? Do you have a clothing, a costume sponsor or a partner? How does it all come together? So what kind of support network do you have around yourself?
So I've got really, really good support network. I've got my bikini sponsors, which is Anne Bikini Love. So she supplies all my suits. I put in the most ridiculous requests because I always like something different that's going to stand out. I've got my cookie sponsor, which obviously I can't have during prep, but afterwards I make the very most of that. So that's with Dolly's Cookies over in Leicester. And then also I've got a CBD infusion who sponsor me as well.
Okay, so now we're going to move on specifically to the meals. You talked about weighing your meals. So when you're weighing a meal, what are you trying to weigh and what you're looking for?
So when you first start a diet, it's tailored to the weight specifically. So I'm having specific amount of carbs and protein and fats for my body, for the look that I'm looking for. And then week by week, if I'm starting to drop, that's when I alter my food. If I don't drop the 2 pound when I'm on prep, then we'll start taking food out. And it's just manipulating it a bit, but it's just remembering you keep the protein high to hold on to muscle. We incorporate plantain into our diet. And it's just there's a lot of potassium in plantain, like the banana, which obviously it draws water in and it keeps the muscles nice and full. So there's lots of like little tips and bits that we do. But, you know, it's understanding your body. Everyone's body is very unique. My body is slow. It likes to hold on to everything that you give it. So whereas some people can get away with being a bit less strict, I have to really grind. But do you know, it is what it is.
Part of the challenge.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how you get to the end point.
So in the gym environment, let's say now you're in the gym, what's your favorite exercise? What machine? What weight? What's your personal best? Give us some insight. What happens inside that gym environment?
Oh my gosh, crazy stuff goes on in there.
Loads of shouting, I assume.
Do you know, we're not too loud. I tend to have this, apparently I'm just expressionless when I train. It's like all the pain's deep inside me and my face is just normal. But inside I am screaming. My type of training, we tend to do a week where we go high reps and a moderate weight. And then we do a week where we go heavy. And before I was doing this, I was doing heavy week after week after week, and I was just getting injuries. So I've just like adapted my training, and I find doing the lighter reps, doing the squeezes, doing the holds, and really engaging with the muscle, it's just like transformed my training. And sort of the results I've had this year from doing that have just been phenomenal. Yeah.
So, you know, you talked about if you did heavyweight week in, week out, you'd get injured. So what do you do when you get injured? Does everything fall back or do you cancel your plan to enter competitions? Or
I think it's knowing about the injury, can you work around the injury? In my off season this year, I had a really bad rotator cuff injury. And so I just had to adapt my training around it. If I had any pain, I had to stop. I couldn't do sort of flat chest, so all my chest work has to be incline. And it's just working around it. Obviously, there's some injuries that you won't be able to sort of compete if you do get them. But I think it's just being sensible. I mean, we all love doing an ego lift here and there. I love it. You know, I've deadlifted sort of 4 plates aside. I've shoulder pressed 4 or 5 plates aside.
Just for the viewers, I'm going to stop you there. So when you say plates, can you be more specific? Is it 20 kilo Olympic plates we're talking about here?
Yeah.
So what's 4 plates aside is what, 80 and 80? Whoa.
So yeah, I keep up with the boys when I train with them. So, and I like to push them as well. So, and I think when they see that I'm catching up with them, they're like, whoa, we can't have a girl beat us. So we sort of push each other.
That's amazing. That's a big weight though.
It's big, yeah.
Because the bar's what, 25 is it, or 20? 20. So you got some heavy weight, 180 on the shoulder press.
Yeah.
That's mad.
It's
I did 5 plates once, but it was 5 plates of rice. I just ate them. So I've never been that strong, yeah. Okay, so obviously a lot of people see bodybuilders on TV and they think all they do is weight training. You've already mentioned that there's cardio involved, and at the moment in your prep phase, you're doing cardio daily. What is the impact of cardio and why do you do it as a bodybuilder?
So, I mean, every coach has different techniques. So everyone's got their own opinion on it. For the way my body works is I do cardio morning and night. So I tend to start off 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at the night. And as we get closer and closer, it'll go up to an hour morning and an hour night maximum. And it's just, you know, it's low impact stuff. So I'm just walking. I've got a little puppy. So out walking the dog all the time. And it's just it just burns the fat, starts getting your metabolism up in the morning. And, you know, for me and a lot of people, cardio's my headspace time. So I plan my day. I get my head in the zone for the day. I know what I'm doing, and sort of get that focus and motivation there. You know, because we all get bad days. And some days you think, why am I doing this? I feel awful. And then you think, you know, sort yourself out, listen to some like inspirational music, watch something that inspires you. And some days you might, you know, mess up. And I always say this because I've got clients that I train myself, you know, if you mess up one day, it doesn't mean you throw the towel in, and just see it like a vase of flowers. Like if one flower dies, you don't chuck the whole bunch of flowers away. You know, you just chuck that one away, get on with it. You know, it's a fresh day. And as long as you learn from your mistakes, you know, mistakes are a good thing to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things with young people nowadays is they're afraid to make a mistake. So they won't dare, or they won't step into that territory that is unknown just because of the fear of failure. And something you just said there, the example with the flowers, it's okay to make a mistake, and sometimes mistakes are inevitable. Yeah. And if you can learn something from it, that's going to develop you as a person. So right now, you obviously take part, you're looking for your international license, yeah? So once you get that, let's say you got that at the end of this year or next year or whenever, what would be your next 5 years?
Gosh.
Or next 2 years, whatever you've thought about, basically.
Probably 2 years. So we've already sort of got a bit of a plan in place. So it'll be to take a year off from competing, and just spend that time putting on some good size, and learning about my body even more. Getting myself a bit bigger in some of my weaker points. And then the plan will be then to go and compete out in America, with hopefully the plan one day to step stage on the Olympia stage would be the dream.
And to win it.
Of course.
Because if you're going to go there, you're going to win it.
That's it. Like, and you know, I think for the UK, there's hardly any British girls out there competing. I think bodybuilding's not as accepted in the UK, especially for women, as it is out in America.
So, you know, on the international stage, once you get that license, are you saying there's not a lot of UK representatives in that field?
Not in the bodybuilding, no.
What about the rest of Europe? Or
there is in Europe and America, but from the UK, doesn't tend to be. There's a handful of girls in the bodybuilding category, so I'd love for more girls to come and do it. And
when people watch this podcast, I think you will encourage those people who've thought about it or dreaming to do it and don't know where to start. They can obviously see there's a living role model local to our club, and if they want to get on board, they're obviously going to have a first-hand expert advice. So we've touched on what you're going to do in 2 years. You're going to come back as world champion.
I hope so.
And then I'm going to be the first one to get a signature. What happens with bodybuilding? Obviously, it's a short career.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the wear and tear on the body, like the amount of weight you're lifting and the amount of times you're going into that dehydration, etc. What happens to bodybuilders generally when they retire?
Do you know what? I think most bodybuilders, they always tend to try and keep some part of...
So is it like coaching, mentoring, taking on like a lead role and helping other athletes prosper?
Yeah, so it's like with my coach, Ernie Taylor. So he's retired, so he does all the diet plans. He obviously mentors people. We do the posing. So we've got the posing studio down at Temple Gym that me and Ernie do all the posing down there. So we go down that aspect, and then me and Ernie were also putting a show on it was going to be this year, but with all the corona, it's going to be next year that we're going to put a show on in Dudley.
Moving forward, what would be a good message that you could give to a young person who has tried bodybuilding and hasn't liked it the first time round? What would you say to that person?
I mean, it depends what they didn't like.
It's most likely going to be the diet.
Yeah.
Most likely.
And if you don't like the diet, do you know what? Bodybuilding's not for everyone. And I do say this to people, like, you've got to be a bit strange to like it, because it does take over your whole life. And unless, you know, I think anyone can get on stage, but if you want to take it to the next level, then it has to take over your whole life. If you didn't like it and you think, oh, I want to try it again. Or, do you know, do a 10-week transformation where you get yourself ready for a beach body, see how you get on from there. And like, don't put too much pressure on yourself, because if there's too much pressure, you're not going to enjoy it. Or try and find a new coach. You know, not every coach's way of working will work for you. So just go out there, research, go and see a few shows. You might get that inspiration, motivation to go up and think, right, I'm ready now. When I first started, I wasn't ready, because I started way, way back. And I was like, I want my Saturday nights. I want to do stuff. And so I sacked it on the head, and then I enjoyed my life, and I've come back and gone, now I'm ready. But now I've done it, I wish I'd started years ago.
Yeah.
But
Can't make up for the lost time, basically. Yeah.
But you got to live. You got to live your life. You got to be happy.
At least you can say you tried that method, and that's what taught you that maybe you shouldn't go down that line. And that's what you just shared with everyone else. So if someone's contemplating coming off the bodybuilding or the training or the dieting or, you know, the discipline side, just to have a bit of fun and to relax a little bit, maybe that's not the best thing. Wait till you've completed your career and then go on to the fun.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's different. It's each to their own. You've got to do what's right for you. And yeah, I mean, you know, it didn't work for me the first time, but maybe that was the right thing to happen for me, because I did my boxing, I've done everything else, and has that made me what I am today? So, you know, I think if you have got a dream, you know, keep pursuing it, because it could happen, but it's all right to like do a bit on the edge and a bit of this and a bit of that. and just keep your options open. But, you know, if you want it enough, it will happen.
So what we do on the end of every sort of conversation, we ask the guest to drop us a final word. It can be a sentence, it can be 2 sentences, it can be a whole paragraph. So something to motivate the viewers and to give them a firm message of how it is to become successful and how you keep driving and you keep putting that good work in. So I'm going to leave it to you to wrap it up.
Oh, you dropped me in it there, didn't you?
Yeah.
I need to think on the night. How to keep motivated. Do you know, I think it's like it's passion, power, motivation. If you want it enough, you will make it happen. And it's, you know, say if it's bodybuilding that you want to do, keep motivated, keep track of what's happening to your body, because you look at yourself all the time. You don't see the changes day by day, but, you know, someone you might see not very often will see the changes in you. So it's, you know, wake up, every day is a fresh day. And you might work like me. I do tick boxes every single day. Just get all my training in, all my food in. And it's sort of a step closer to my dream. But, do you know, it is hard work, and some days are going to be tough. Some days are going to be good. But at the end of the day, not everyone can get to that end point. And if you can, fair play. So, you know, just be happy, and that's it.